Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the Making Progress channel. Video number 24, 10 basic rules for a functional relationship. And in this case, by relationship, I mean a romantique relationship, as the French would no doubt say. And this is under the relationships and dating side of the channel, video topic subset of the channel, of which I know precious little. But what I do know might be somewhat valuable to you, and if it is, please comment, and if it's not, please comment at my expense. So, 10 rules and an 11th bonus rule is what I have for you. Rule number 1. Now, this is like a 10 rules for life, Jordan Peterson sort of thing. These aren't so much rules. They're not biblical. They're kind of suggestions. Open-ended suggestions that if you do marginally more of these things and do marginally less of their opposite, then you might find that your romantic relationship, especially if you're married, or as in seemingly much of the world nowadays, what's called a partner. I just know that from Australian people. That we're one of the first to start using that for, like, instead of husband and wife, they say my partner, which is like, I didn't know what the fuck that was. I was like, oh, I didn't know that you were LGBTQIA+. And they're like, I'm not. And I was like, oh, that's the only people in America that say partner. But even those folks in America nowadays say husband or wife. So yeah, I guess maybe we're moving towards a gender neutral world. Cue the globalists and the conspiracy theories. All right, slide aside. Rule number 1, have your best interests in mind. That's oddly selfish. Why would someone like me with a history of thought rooted somewhat in Ayn Rand's objectivism be a proponent of selfishness? And the answer to that is actually a very easy few points. First of all, we want everyone in a relationship to be well taken care of, to be attended to be healthy, to be happy, for people to be concerned with them so that their situation is as good as it can be. And gee whiz, who is the person number one most inclined to know what you need and attend to your needs? That's you, motherfucker. You got your own back. So everyone has to take care of themselves to start with. If you ignore your own needs and become kind of like a step mat or a walking pad for the other person in the relationship, and it's all for them and not for you, how is that sustainable? You're going to drain yourself of all happiness and vitality. And at some point, the last XYZ number of months or years spent with them is your account, well, subjectively miserable to you because you haven't been attending to your own needs. Now, if your need is pathetic and S&M-like and you love being stepped on doormat style like Scott the Video Guy does, then amazing. You are actually attending to your needs when you're being pathetic and ignoring all of your other needs. But most people aren't that freaky, and so they need their needs met, and it has to start with you making sure you're taking care of literally number one. Literally number one. And if your partner in the relationship has any problem with this, that would be very strange because ostensibly they love you as well. And you love them. And if they love you, they sure as shit have to be expecting the fact that you are taking care of yourself, and not just expecting, loving that fact. Like, I have a wife, and if I think for a second, oh, I wonder if Crystal is taking care of herself. Oh my God, if the answer is no, I am in a panic, hoping to help her as much as possible. Maybe if she's really sick or something, she can't attend to her needs, then I'm on her ass, well, maybe sometimes literally, not if she's sick, just breaking myself over and over to try to help her out, because usually she's a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. How's that getting with me? But she can handle her own business, which is the best thing in the world because I want her handled. I want her attended to because I love her so goddamn much. And, you should probably love yourself a lot. I think most of us do. So take care of your own shit first. And if they find out that you've been sacrificing your own needs to meet theirs, they might like that in some romantic Romeo and Juliet sense, for sure. But they also might not like that because they'll be like, dude, I love you too. Why don't you say something? Like, if I found out that my wife was like taking one on the chin for me and doing some shit that she didn't like, that I liked, and she never told me about it. You guys ever see that shit? Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. They were trying to set him up with like a wife, and back in Africa or whatever. And he was like, what kind of movies do you like? She's like, whatever you like. He's like, what kind of books do you like? She's like, whatever you like. He's like, Jesus Christ, there's no human being in there. And your romantic partner probably doesn't want you to be someone who just serves their needs at the expense of yours. So if you're not taking care of yourself and you're making look like everything's okay, but really just to serve them, if they find out, man, they might not enjoy that. I know I wouldn't enjoy that if my wife was like, you know what, man, I've been sacrificing a ton for you over these past years. I'd be like, what the fuck? I didn't know about this. That's terrible. I don't want you to be a sacrificial lamb. I want you to have as many great things in your life as possible. So number one is have your best interests in mind. And even though I'm wildly unqualified to be giving any of this advice, thank you, free speech and First Amendment. I can do whatever the fuck I want. You don't have to tune in, but here you are. This actually folds in really well with modern psychology and psychiatry, in which if there's a self-esteem problem in a relationship, they usually like to attend to that, maybe not first, but definitely to some great extent. Like if someone is really just like considers themselves less than valuable in a relationship, a lot of times the therapist will shift focus to that, be like, ooh, before we deal with the dynamic between you, let's take care of each one of you individually to make sure we're solid. Because if someone's a really broken person and just like living for someone else versus themselves, and they have no self-esteem or self-efficacy whatsoever themselves, it's going to be tough to make you a functional unit of a relationship. Next, this one's really short. Have their best interests in mind. Rule number 2. So the one was, first rule is have your best interests. Second rule is have their best interests in mind. It's pretty easy. You love them, right? Isn't it great to see their needs met? A lot of times people in relationships from a third party perspective seem to be living almost exclusively for themselves, like, calling the wife the old ball and chain, which is really hilarious if it's comedy. But you guys know some people at the office you talk to call their wife the ball and chain and just hope she goes away for a weekend so they can finally watch football. And they're not joking. The people around the water cooler are laughing, politely giggling. Ha, Jim, whew, those wives, huh? Am I right? But at the end of the day, like, holy fuck. Do you not like your wife? Why the fuck are you with her? And sometimes the answer is we had children together and we're just going to stick it out. Dope. Respect. It seems fairly important for children to grow up with two parents. But I hope I catch you before you have children. And or if you do have children, there's some semblance of saving the fact that you actually really do like that person and you want their best interests in mind. So if you have your own best interests in mind, and if you have their best interests in mind, gee, man, we're off to a really, really, really good start. If either one of those are missing to a large extent, you're going to have some problems no matter how slick you are. Next, point number 3, learn what they like and dislike the most. And this goes for both people in the relationship. So you're learning what your partner likes and dislikes on both sides of the equation. The thing is this can take years for 2 reasons. One, people are deep. And you can't learn a person entirely within a few months or something like that. And 2 is people change. And so there's always something new to learn about an individual. And it can really take your whole life to learn the other person. And you might not even be done. They croak on you and you're like, oh, Becky, I was going to ask you what you wanted for dinner tomorrow, but you're dead. Well, they got dark real fast, didn't it? Scott's video guy. It's always a constant learning journey, but as you are in this journey to learn what they like and don't like, you are going to be continually elevating your game and knowing a larger and larger fraction of what they like and don't like. That is, you're getting to know their preferences the most. And as you begin to learn what they like and don't like, you want to develop plans, approaches, dates, and lifestyles mutually for the two of you that check as many boxes for you both as possible. Rule number 1, you already know what you like. Rule number 2, you already have their best interests in mind. Rule number 3 is you learn what they prefer and what they don't care for. And then what you do with rule number 3 is you just overlap the interests as much as possible from yours and theirs. And voila, whatever overlaps, man, there's got to be some pretty good stuff in there. Right? If you like to watch, the show Jeopardy or something, Jeopardy reruns, fuck, you do that. But, and they love it too. That's just like a happiness IV drip for you both when you're doing it together. And probably you don't just like that. There may be many other things you like that both of you like. And then all of a sudden you have all these activities and ways to spend your time to choose from that are really amazing for both people. And geez, that's win, win, win. Now, sometimes that might not be the case, which brings us to rule number 4. And rule number 4 is don't drag them along to doing shit that they don't like that you like? What if the interests don't align? Do you compel them to come along with you for something that you want to do, but they don't? My answer generally is no. Generally. Sometimes you really can't help it. And remember, you're on a team together. It's the two of you together. And in a team, you can negotiate some things that are like someone takes it on the chin for the team. That doesn't mean you become a sacrificial lamb forever. That doesn't mean you pretend to like it. That just means sometimes the shit is like, two people are required. I know you don't love this, but it's something I kind of have to do. For example, my wife was in medical school when we were together. We were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and then I guess fiance and fiance. Scott, is there masculine and feminine for that?
Yeah, sir.
Get the fuck out of here. Bring up marriage. Scott shudders. He's like, oh, what? Hey, no, never. So during the time that my wife and I knew each other, she was either in medical school or in residency or in fellowship, and now she's out and she's a doctor in the real world. But during a lot of those educational times, there's a lot of like functions and dinners and galas and shit these people go to that, if you have a significant other, it's kind of expected that you bring them along. And so it's not my most incredible jazzy use of my time to pretend to be a civil human being around doctors while I have the thoughts in my head. You guys all know I do. And I'm sitting there like, cue incel meme of, I bet they don't know I'm Dr. Mike Israetel from the RP channel. They all did. And even that was at times quite fun. But at times, it's just like, oh, fuck, I got to put on a suit. I hate this shit. But here's the thing. Sometimes you got to take it on the chin. 1, 2, 3, go team. And let's fucking crush this out. Let's get this done. But as a rule, it's not a good idea to drag people along regularly for things they don't like. If you can't avoid it, fine. People will go see their relatives once a week and be like, Ron hates it, but it's family. Like, Jesus Christ, every week Ron has to do some shit he fucking hates. Maybe Ron is cool with it, and maybe it's 1, 2, 3 team. But maybe you should talk to Ron and ask him, hey, man, do you like this? And he'd be like, well, of course, honey. He'd be like, Ron, for real. Like, if I croaked, would you go see my relatives? He'd be like, yes, once, to deliver a small bomblet to their mailbox so that one of them could lose an arm trying to fucking fish it out. Like, oh, holy shit. I mean, you put it like that. So do you want to keep coming to the family things, or maybe we can work our way around that and be like, wow, I don't want to not burden you. Like, Ron, your needs first. What do you think? You're like, yeah, there's some way I could do this once every 2 weeks. That would be amazing. So all of a sudden you're doing less dragging them along, which is almost always and almost everywhere better than dragging them along more. And if you are the person that's getting dragged along, the person dragging you along might not know it, because you might be pretending you like it. And thus, technically speaking, though it's a pretty white lie, you're lying to them, right? Rule number 1 and number 2, your own interests in mind and their interests in mind. It pays to be super honest about your preferences. Honesty doesn't mean you only do what you like. It means everyone knows the score and can kind of decide for themselves and for the team what to do together. So if someone in the relationship doesn't like to do something, but the other person knows, and nobody is pretending, that they can be like, hey, man, do you want to go do this thing with me? And they're like, you know what? Absolutely. We're like, I know, but I know you don't like it. Like, but for you, this once and many onces in the future, because I love you so goddamn much, it would please me to do this. And they're like, okay, you're just faking. Like, nope, I honestly mean that. And I'm going to try to enjoy the fuck out of it as much as possible. Now, if you need any tips on how to handle strange social situations or other things you don't like, there's nothing about 50 milligrams of THC won't handle. As long as you're not driving a vehicle, pop that shit back. There's not really a you left over. You can talk to grandma. You can talk to her dad. You can fucking get bit by their family dog for the 17th time. Doesn't fucking matter because you're not around. That's my hack. But on a serious note, sometimes you got to take it for the team. But if taking it for the team is kind of a rule in your relationship, then dragging along that's what's happening. There's totally fine opportunities to do things by yourselves or re-architect the situation so you're not dragging your partner along. If you need a justification, go back to rule number 2. You want to know what they like and tend to their needs. Their needs are not tended to when you're dragging them along to some bullshit that they fucking hate. To that end, one of the best ways to get around this problem of dragging people along is rule number 5, which is that you don't need to do everything together, which some couples, it seems to me, and I don't want to offend anyone, we've all been, I've done this myself before. Sometimes people just, man, they think in like a way an 11-year-old would. You're like, grow up. What the fuck is wrong with you? Some people think they need to be doing everything together. Like that one couple in the 6th grade, first boyfriend and girlfriend, and they held hands like every conceivable place they went at all times. Like, isn't there like a festering, clammy ball of sweat and excess child skin in your hand by now? Are you fused together? What the fuck is wrong with you? Well, not a goddamn thing. It just turns out you're just 11 years old, right? But when you're 47 and you have to think you do everything together, it's kind of fucking nuts. It's no big deal. You're going to have hobbies and interests that you don't like. Me personally, holy fuck. So like my wife, she'll watch like, oh man, like the stupidest of the stupid, most degenerate reality TV for a purpose. She is a very cerebral and does a lot of really high level abstracted work at her day job. And she needs a break. And as soon as she starts watching the stupidest TV in the world, the old brain doesn't have much to contend with and kind of switches off, giving her a break. I do that as well, but I do it with edible marijuana. I'm a PED cheater all the way through and through in my entire life. But I don't judge her for that shit. Sometimes I join in when I'm on marijuana and I can tolerate bullshit like that. And it's actually quite funny then. And sometimes I just don't. No big deal. If she's watching it by herself, sometimes I'm watching some other shit on the iPad in the other room or some shit like that. We live together for the love of God. No one's abandoning any vows. You don't need to be connected at the fucking hip. I mean, we work in separate offices. Does it like strain my heart that I haven't seen her in 4 hours? What the fuck? It's nonsense. Some people think they have to do every single thing together, and that's just not true. And sometimes my wife's actually really good about doing the things I like to do, but she'll just fall asleep doing them because she doesn't really like them. She's just still awake, and then very not much not. One of my things, and Scott the video guy gives me infinite shit for it, is all deserved. One of my hobbies is to consume as much technical military strategy and technology literature and video as I can. Why? Because it's a childhood hobby that I reinvigorated when the Ukraine war started. I can't get enough of that shit. I'm like an addict. And to be quite frank, the shit is boring as fuck. It's so, what the fuck? Who does this? What is this? So my wife will just fall asleep while I'm watching those videos. But sometimes that means she's asleep and I'm watching the videos and we're not doing the same thing together. I've seen couples wake each other up. Be like, honey, come on. You said you were going to watch this with me. What the fuck is wrong with you? What are you, 11 years old? You need someone around? You need a fucking chaperone? You can do things by yourself. You'll be totally fine. The idea that you need to do everything together sets a lot of couples up for bad times because then there's a lot of stuff that they want to do that both people don't want to do, and it just breeds conflict, right? So it's 100% cool for you guys to have separate times when you do your own thing, like getting your nails done or reading a book or watching only videos that you like and they don't because you have an iPad and they have an iPad and both of you have headphones in, and well, that's the modern family. This gets down to even touchy issues that I'm going to weigh in on. Even visiting family of yours that they're cordial with but don't adore can sometimes be done by yourself instead of with them. Pretending to love mutual family can be a tough act. One of the things is the person who is the child of the family, let's say the wife is the child of her family and the sibling of her family, she didn't pick her brothers and sisters or her parents either. So sometimes she might not be getting along with them all that well. You are just some motherfucker she's dragging along for that shit. You really might not be getting along with him well. And while everything's cordial and you get along just fine, it just might not be the best use of your time. You worked super hard during the week. It's Friday night comes along. And you're like, oh God, yes, about to relax, about to toke it up, about to watch some trash TV. Your boy's in it. Let's go. And she's like, hey, we got to go see Aunt Sheila. And you're like, oh, okay, I love her. She's so great at her. What is that thing she does? Yeah, that thing. No, it's totally cool again. From the last rule, to take it on the chin. But if both people are communicating and both know what they like and don't like, sometimes it's a thing. Like my wife is much more of a private person than I am, and her bandwidth for social interaction is much lower by definition because mine seems to be infinite. You can put me in a room with 100,000 people and I'll just go one person to the next having enthralling conversations. Well, anyone who talks to me anyway, most of you don't want to say anything to me. But I'll look in my direction. Scott, is it the odor?
A lot of things.
Oh,
Multifactorial.
oh my God. Oof, rough. It's like a hire one of those like Hitch type of people to clean your ass up so someone will date you. You're like, what's my thing, Hitch? Why don't I have a woman in my life? He's like, oh yeah, one singular thing, huh? Your existence, I guess. But we'll break it down. Sure, there's something salvageable about you. But in any case, my wife is more of a private person. And she sometimes, like, my family is a lot for her. And so sometimes we go visit my family together, and sometimes I go by myself. No big deal. No big deal. Shit happens. Point number 6. This is me kind of, Scott, can I move the laptop over a little bit? Okay. This is me channeling I'm going to butcher her name, Sarit Chawala. I would follow her. It's like Sarut, maybe Sarut, South Asian name that's impronounceable to us whites. She is a psychotherapist based in England, I think, and she's got a great Instagram, and she throws out a bunch of truth bombs all the time. And this is point number 6 is kind of maybe in her sort of space. When you think of yourself as a person in a two-party relationship, in a romantic relationship, you have to understand something, and this is rule number 6. You are entitled to precisely zero attention. Zero attention. There is a lot of strife that occurs with couples when one of them wants more attention than they're getting. And the strife multiplies by 10 when they switch their emotion or relationship intellectually from want to feel entitled to getting. You are entitled to zero attention from your partner. You are entitled to zero hangout time. You are entitled to zero anything. Entitlement is not a part of the conversation. Do you know what you're entitled to? Legal documents that you signed and were signed the other way. When you pay taxes, you are literally entitled to government services because you paid for that shit. What the fuck did you pay for with your significant other? You pay them to be around? They're not your significant other. You're just one of Scott the Video Guy's many Ukrainian girls without a home that spend time in Scott the Video Guy's home. It's a transitional period.
Concubine? Is that the right term?
Yeah, concubine's a fine term. If you invite them to do something with you and they say no, so be it. Your options are now, okay, I either do this thing myself, or I can do something else myself, or see if they have a better idea of what we need to do together. None of the options are make them do the thing that I want because I want the attention and I want it to be about me. If you, over time, seem to want to hang out much more than the other person, then that's definitely something to chat about. And this can happen. This happens in many relationships where one of the people has all these other friends, all these other hobbies, they work a lot, and the other person, at the extremes, sits at home a lot. And like it's done scrolling through the TV channels or binging Netflix. And they're like, God damn it. Like I want to hang out with this person. And then sometimes it's the tragedy of you don't really have actually as much in common as you think when they're like, hang out with me. And you're like, okay. And you're sitting there on the couch like, all right, here we are. And they're like, what do you want to do? And you're like, God damn it. What are you, 11? Like, asking girls out and then having no idea what the fuck to do next is an 11-year-old's game. But a lot of adults play that shit. If you are consistently needing or being requested of more attention than you are willing or able or ready to give, that's a conversation. So you chat and you clarify to make sure they aren't feeling the same or just haven't expressed it. Because sometimes they're like, no, I absolutely want to hang out with you more. Work's been killing me and I've been misprioritizing this shit. I'm done with all those extra meetings. Let's make time for each other. It's been killing me inside. You're like, oh my God, I'm really glad I said something. Because sometimes everyone wants to hang out, but sometimes you even have a situation where the other person gets vibes that sort of indicate to them that the other person isn't interested in hanging out, and they sort of kind of recede. And then that person gets vibes that they're receding, and the recession just continues to make this chasm between them. Communication, verbal communication is ultra important. It's so important, it didn't even make a fucking rule. Like it's implied. You gotta talk to people. And if you talk to them and you're like, hey, like I kind of been wanting to hang out with you more. Are you just cool hanging out as much as we are now? Or did you want to hang out more? And if they say I'm as cool as it is now, then that's your truth. And if they say, oh, I want to hang out more, make sure that it's actually something they're not saying just to be nice, and then go from there. maybe you can think of more ways to spend time together. Because sometimes it's like, well, let's hang out. Like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, well, I didn't have any ideas. Like, well, motherfucker, it's your idea to hang out. Like, you don't invite someone on a date and say, hey, you want to go on a date with me? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, where are we going? You're like, I don't know. I'm like, what the fuck? You got to have some kind of idea. But people oftentimes, even in relationships, have different needs for hanging. And either that's a deal breaker for you at some point because your needs are not being met in a way that can't be squared with any other strategy, or you just have to deal with it in many of your ways, including like investing in yourself and your own time and your own hobbies. Some people want to hang out 100% of the time, and they're in a relationship with someone that wants to hang out 50% of the time. That's a fucking problem. It's a solvable problem in one of two ways. One is you find more ways to hang out with each other that raises that person's 50% to 75, and you take your 25 and you find out what other shit you want to do with yourself that doesn't force them to hang out with you. So you become more independent and they become more likely to hang out with you because what you're doing, the subset of activities you're doing together, increases and they don't have to take anything on the chin. And neither do you because you've got great new hobbies for yourself and they have a better reason to hang out with you. You meet in the middle somewhere, 75, or even after a conversation, they rise to 100 or you drop to 50, whatever it is. Or you realize that the amount of time and attention you want from a person and want to spend with them is just totally discordant and intractable between the two of you. Then you just it's a deal breaker, and then you're not in a relationship with anymore potentially. That's it. And my thing at the end of this is do not compel someone to hang out with you ever. You'll see this in couples. They'll say shit like, you never hang out with me. When are we going to hang out? What the fuck? Is that how you make friends? Is that how you invite people on dates? An interesting approach to use, this is a bit extreme, but can nonetheless illustrate a point. Just regular weekend or evening hangouts with your significant other, you can treat them kind of as mini dates. The number one thing for a date is both people want to be there, and you're doing an activity both people like to do. If you treat it as mini dates, no big deal. When's the last time you called a girl or called a guy, asked them out on a date in a way that was like, oh, you have to do this. Like, when are you going to go on a date with me? That's not how you fucking ask someone out. What the fuck? That's nonsense. Where do you think that can possibly lead if you start annoying them and guilt tripping them into hanging out with you more? That's not going to work out. Straight up. Next, point number 7, rule number 7. Before you bring beef to them, before you have a sit-down serious talk with them about some shit that's on your mind, try to squash your own beef first. If you vocalize every annoyance, you're nagging, and that is terrible. Nagging destroys relationships straight up. I've seen it happen myself. Not in my relationships, but in close family and friends. And it's terrible to watch and sure as shit terrible to experience. Here's the thing. If something annoys you, a huge fraction of the time, you getting annoyed is just 100% your fucking problem. How do I know this? I have all sorts of annoyances that aren't even logical. So I know they're my fucking problem and they don't make any sense. And I try not to put them on other people because that would make no sense. So for example, personal time, some things that I don't like. I don't like buttons. If I see large buttons on your shirt, it irks me out. It fills me with the raw emotion of all of us have the same suite of human emotions we experience across cultures. They're all genetically derived. Disgust. Why? What the fuck? I don't know. Freud zigged them wires when he should have zagged them shits in my developing brain. I hate buttons a ton. Do I yell at my wife when she wears things with buttons? No. I try to shut the fuck up because it's my problem. Now, sometimes she knows that I don't like buttons, so she'll wear something with buttons, and it's not all buttons. It gets really odd. I'm not even going to get into it, but some arrangements of buttons are really disconcerting to me in a very like autistic way, and she'll like, oh, fuck, sorry, I wore the shirt. I'll be like, oh my God, it's not a big deal. No big deal at all because I'm swallowing that shit. It doesn't matter because it's my fucking problem. That's not her problem. What an insane thing to put on somebody. I hate onions, which I do understand make food taste great. I love onion flavor, but I hate onions themselves. Like if a food was prepared with kindness and care for a lot of money and it has visible onions in it, I'm simply not eating it. And it's not a debate. It's just I'm not doing it. It's like giving someone ice cream and having pieces of shit in it. And someone's like, but can't you just eat around the pieces of shit? What are you fucking crazy? No, I'm crazy. So I shut the fuck up about it. That's not anyone's fault but mine. I hate olives. And believe it or not, Scott's video guy, I don't know if you know this one. Under some context, I really hate overalls.
I did not know that.
Like, especially when a girl is wearing overalls, like a woman of reproductive age, and she's like, thinks they look cute. It just drives me mad. I hate it. I'm like, God,
They have big buttons on them too.
overalls with big buttons is like Freudian hell. And, another thing I hate is when people look at, you're not looking at their phone and they're scrolling through IG reels and they're not doing it on mute. So you get like some 15-second fraction of the world's worst current pop song. That drives me insane. Now, my wife happens to have outfits with buttons on. She does occasionally eat onions and olives like a normal human being. She has no overalls that I've seen. I think she probably look really cute in them, but catch me on the wrong day and I hate them. And she sometimes will scroll her IG reels. She nowadays does it mostly on mute, but she used to do it just like that. Here's the thing is, I was driving in the car and she's scrolling her IG and it's like 15 seconds of a shitty song, 10 seconds of another shitty song. And I'm like crushing my steering wheel. Is that for me to explode on her? No, because what the fuck? It's a fucking just a harmless sound. I'm in a gym. I listen to the same shitty pop music. I'm not trying to fight anyone there. It's my fucking problem. Now, in just conversation over whatever period of time, or if I'm on too much gear, I'll let it slip that I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing. And she's almost always like, oh, geez, yeah, mute, no big deal. But this is not something to be like, honey, like you're doing things to piss me off and I don't like it. Like, stop doing this, stop doing that. No, it's my own shit. That's my own shit. So you'll find that many of your annoyances are your fucking problem and you can crush them out and your partner shouldn't have to do a damn thing about them. You need to eat that shit internally. Your partner is not some kind of simulacrum that's designed to deliver only pleasure to you and you can modify them at will. So I've had friends and family who I watch them try to engineer their partner to minimize their level of annoyance. And that's totally cool if the partner's in on that sort of thing and is consenting to that. But what you have to do at first is the upfront work in your own head of engineering your own shit down. The best way to get rid of annoyances isn't to attend to them in the environment. It's to attend to them up here. One amazing experience happened in my life to this extent. I was getting really into lifting. I was in my first year of college or between high school and college. And I was training at this new facility. And there was a guy there who ended up being a martial arts trainer of mine and a huge mentor in my life and a really big, profound impact on me. And he was bigger and stronger than me. And I knew him because he knew things and I'd never talked to him. And he was in charge of the gym floor. And I remember I was really getting into like meditation and mindfulness and stoicism and shit like that. So I actually, nowadays I get to do this all the time. I prefer to train with no music at all. I found the music to be distracting. Back then, my attention deficit disorder was much more profound. So it was really annoying to lift to music. And I asked him, I was like, hey, is there a way we could turn the music down or turn it off? And I knew he would understand. I'm like, I'm really hardcore about this shit and I need to focus. And he smiles and he goes something to the effect of, he's like, a real warrior does what he must no matter what's going on. And I was like, ooh. And he walked off and I was like, oh, I'm such a bitch. Holy shit. And then it didn't matter what music was on. I was zen'd in because holy fuck, it was totally on me. That applies to relationships as well. If something really pisses you off, try to figure out why it pisses you off and try to figure out ways to de-stress that whole situation before taking every single thing that pisses you off to your partner. That's called nagging and it fucking destroys relationships. Nagging is undefeated. Number 8, have honesty about their action. If you want something to change with their actions, bring them the real deal politely and tell them how you feel and ask them what they think. Pretty straightforward. If they are inclined to change their action, they will. But you cannot demand that they change. Remember, relationships are voluntary. Demand is never in the equation of a relationship. Never not. Justin Bieber said never say never. Violating his own edict, I might add, right in the act. Everything's voluntary. Demand is almost never something that occurs in a relationship. You cannot make, what is it? I saw a tattoo on a fucking was it Mike Miller, I guess, squatted like, was the first person to squat like 1,100 or 1,200 or something. And he had a tattoo on his forearm or maybe his chest. I forget which one. And it said, "Do not demand what you cannot take by force." And I was like, holy fuck. And he was like 6'4", 390. I was like, Jesus Christ. He could demand my sexuality right now and I would have to oblige. But, I would take that a step further and say, do not demand anything that you are not under contract to receive. If you swipe your credit card for Chipotle, you are under implied legal contract to receive a burrito. If you don't get the burrito, you can demand a burrito. Now, you don't have to do it Karen style, yelling at everyone. But yeah, you are entitled to burrito. You didn't sign a marriage contract that says I'm going to receive sex every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to do the XYZ. That is not in the equation. It's all voluntary. You can't demand anything. If you have honesty and you talk to each other and you reconcile the situation and everyone's hunky-dory, amazing. That happens weekly and monthly in relationships. But if something is really intractable, or if it's a lot of things that you don't like what they're doing, they don't like how you're reacting to it or what you're doing, if there's enough of that, then it can end up in divorce. And if it ends up in divorce and you look back and you ask yourself, Jesus, did it really have to come to this? Well, there's a record of many conversations in which you asked like, hey, can we change this? And they were like, nah. And then you're like, oh yeah, I guess it does make sense, divorce. Sometimes the shit doesn't work out. Scott, the video guy, how many times have you been divorced?
I have the most highest divorce settlement ever.
That you got?
Yeah, I received.
My man, dating them rich hoes. That's a good idea. She's like, should we sign a prenup? You're like, no, baby, why would we? I love you forever. She's like, okay. $200 million later. Rule number 9. Do not keep track of favors. The thing about favors is they're favors. And if you're keeping track of them, they're simply exchanges. When I am charging a hotel room for room service, they keep track of what I'm charging them. They don't bring up the food and the drinks as a favor to me. They're keeping track of it because it's pure capitalism. It's tit for tat. There's a cool ethic there that I think is wonderful, but it's not exactly, I can't say I'm in a relationship with the hotel administrator. They're not extending me any favors. If you have a situation in your head or in your own relationship in which you do things for your partner and you're keeping track of it all in your head or even on paper, how many favors you've done for them, and you find lately that they haven't done enough favors for you, and you bring the ledger to them and you're like, look at this red ink. You got to fill this in. God damn it. We're in a what? We're in a what? Some kind of contract where you have to keep track of things you do? That's insane. Favors are things you do from the heart that you throw into the wind and forget about. When you give charity to people, you're not like, better get me back later. That's a loan. And loans are great. I think loans are morally better than charity. Oddly Jewish and capitalist thing to say. But Jesus Christ, if you're giving charity, you can't expect anything in return. Nothing. Like, to channel my Jordan Peterson bullshit, like, you know what I'm saying? What does they say? Scott, you grew up Christian, Christ-like, right? Like Jesus Christ, when he was super kind to people, wasn't like, hey, make sure to, I'm saying, remember who did this for you. What the fuck? That's not a thing. You give, and you forget. Why you give? Because you love them. Remember, if you're trying to do tit for tat, that's a bad place that goes to. And I've seen with my own 2 eyes where that goes. It just ends up being like a kind of a contractual relationship where you keep track of things and you do kind things for each other only to get kind things later in return. If you want to play it like that and everyone knows that that's what's going on, dope. It comes from kind of very transactional relationship. Nothing wrong with that. But it's not exactly a romantic relationship anymore. So if you're doing a favor for someone, which remember is a little different too, because favors people usually don't ask for. If you do a favor, it's totally voluntary. And that means you're throwing it into the wind. What's that shit? If you love someone, set them free. And if they come back to you, it was meant to be. But if they go bang 5 or 6 guys and then they come back to you, then I don't know, is it still meant to be? Hey, it's like Jenny from Forrest Gump. Scott, how many guys do you think Jenny banged from first meeting Forrest until having a child by him?
I think there was definitely a train in there somewhere.
Like, it's not just that she banged a series of single guys. It was like multiple guys, some kind of like grotesque scientific experiment where they fused 3 guys together and that thing banged her. Yeah. She's been around. Rule number 10, the final rule before the bonus rule number 11. Ooh, you guys get a bonus. Isn't that nice? Compliments go a long way with most people, and they have to be genuine. Fake compliments are worse than valuable. They're degrading. And you can say, oh man, I'm really bad at compliments. Well, you love them, right? So it should be pretty easy. You just got to find the way that you can give compliments best. And one thing I used to kind of be a little bit afraid of is that I would wear a compliment out. And it would just, you've received it so much, it doesn't hit the spot anymore. And what my wife has assured me of, maybe she's lying, who knows? Maybe, are you watching this? You better be lying to me. I'll sick Scott the video guy on you. And what I know to be true also for myself and my own experience is genuine compliments really never get old. We're all bottomless pits for that shit. Not needy bottomless pits that have to have compliments or else we can't keep going. But god damn, it's never a bad thing. It's like finding a $20 bill on the street when you're walking around and there's just nobody around to claim it. There's not a situation in which that's bad. What are you, crazy? And it's like, yeah, but you've been finding 20s every few weeks. Like, no shit, I hope the motherfuckers keep coming. Is somebody fucking with me and dropping 20s a couple feet away from me when I'm not looking so that I have this experience? If you're doing that, thank you. Holy shit, how much money do I owe you? Compliments can sometimes seem cheap, but most people just can't get enough of them. And I find that genuine compliments, organically delivered, are this kind of like a kindling fuel for the fire of, I don't know about romance. I don't know shit about romance, but just a lot of good times in a relationship. Like, and one of the things is if you feel really compelled to say something kind, definitely do it. And sometimes if you feel like, oh, wow, this is a true thing that I could say, and I really do mean it, consider saying it. But definitely if you feel genuinely, like, pop up a compliment in your head when your partner is around. Do you mean it in your head? Is it true in your head? Does it feel good to potentially say for practice just in your own head? Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. Don't say it. You don't want anything not genuine. Yes, it does. Say that shit. Say that shit. Like sometimes I look at my wife and I'm like, yeah, that's a person. Cool. And she looks like that. Dope. And sometimes I look at my wife and I'll be like, just flabbergasted with fucking raw beauty. I'd be like, oh my God. Many of those times I'd be like, honey, you're beautiful. Is it okay if I tell you that? And she'll be like, oh, usually she's like, Jesus, yes, of course, ha ha, ha, LOL. But I asked her many times in deep, often post-sexual or pre-sexual conversations, the deepest ones romantically, like laying next to each other in bed and staring into each other's eyes really close type of bullshit. And I asked her, I'm like, is it getting old when I compliment you with just bullshit like this? And she's like, grabs my hand and she's like, it's never, ever, ever old. And she's not dumb enough to say, keep them coming, because then it seems like she's needy. But if they're genuine, compliments go such a long way. Even minor shit like, dude, I love the outfit today. Wouldn't you like to hear some shit like that? Let's try it on Scott the Video Guy. Hey, Scott.
Hi.
You're here at work today.
I am.
That's nice.
Cool. That went well.
I got to work on my
well.
Did you feel like it was genuine? Look, do better than I'm doing right now. But on a serious note, even because Scott and I do have absolutely romantic is a bit of a stretch, sexual relationship. Sometimes Scott and I will chill and I'll get I'll get emotional. I'll be like, Scott, you're the fucking man. You are the YouTube channel. And I mean that. I'm inclined to believe Scott probably doesn't hate that. And Scott, have you ever got the feeling that these things are getting old and you're tired of hearing shit like that?
No.
Yeah. And if he did, I'd be like, oh, Scott's a psychopath.
That was just a test to see if I was a psychopath.
You've passed a lot of those as a psychopath. You're like, oh, these are easy. Stupid normies with their emotions think we can't replicate them. That is the whole point of a psychopath. I can act exactly like you and feel nothing. All right. Bonus mystery rule number 11. Do something for your significant other on occasion that they really, really like and you are neutral towards. Just pump them full of goodness. Here are some examples. Gee whiz, time to get demonetized. Oral sex. Sometimes one of your partners loves oral sex. I'll just cut to the chase. Ladies, you go and watch some YouTube videos or follow some Instagram accounts or read a book or two on how to pleasure your man orally. Full disclosure, I can't believe I'm saying this in a public forum. I'm not a huge fan of getting my shit done. Oral sex. There's a ton of other shit I like that comes way before that. Like, I'm not going to turn a fucking blowjob down, but that's not like number one for me. The thing is, for a ton of guys, and listen, I've delivered said services to very many guys. they love getting fucking blowjobs. And if you are a significant other that is female, or shit, even male, it's 2023, and you know your man likes fucking blowjobs, every now and again, put the rose petals out, sit his ass down, somewhere comfy, and just get at it. Nothing like a fucking technical blowjob, that ramping period, and all this other bullshit that lasts half an hour to an hour. Holy fuck, just for them, just for you. Today, it's you day. That kind of stuff is such fucking fertilizer for a great relationship. And gentlemen, lest I get too explicit here, your lady friend, she has the vagina down there, and it's not just a hole for your penis to go through. There's the clitoris and all that other stuff. I don't know much about that because the last time I learned that I was like a 5th grade sex education. It seemed kind of gross, but I'm inclined to believe that if you get quite good at cunnilingus, you drop bitches cold in their tracks. That's exactly what they want. Oral sex is fucking amazing. You know, a lot of us like to kiss and have the meat and potatoes, both people nut. It's amazing. But maybe you step away from that every now and again and really just dive into the other person, metaphorically as well as physically. Here's another one. One of these leads into the other often. Massages. Just give your partner a fucking 45-minute massage. Put their dumbass on a bed or on a table and fucking just dive into it. You don't have to know what you're doing. Just try your best. Talk to them, see what kind of shit they like and don't like. All of a sudden, like, that's dope. That's something that's fucking unbelievable. Who the fuck doesn't like a massage? It's wild. Schedule an appointment for them. Help them get their hair and nails done or some shit if you have a female partner. They love shit like that. Dinner, fun events, trips, surprises. That kind of stuff is fucking amazing. Here's the one big rule, though, the big caveat to this rule. Do not do it begrudgingly. Okay? There's nothing hotter than getting a blowjob from a woman that hates doing it. No, wait, I said that wrong. Everything else is hotter than that. That's fucking ridiculous. If they see that you don't like doing what you're doing for them, even though you're doing it as a huge favor in the bonus mystery rule, they won't get as much out of it, and they might even have a net negative reaction to this. It's so strange to have someone do something kind to you where you can fucking tell that with every fiber of their being, they feel like they're obligated to do it. Awful, terrible. Here's the thing. You're not doing it to run up points so they get you back. Never in a million years would be like, well, honey, like the last 3 weeks I went down on you like 10 times and gave you 3 massages. Like, where am I in all this? Motherfucker, you're giving that shit voluntarily. You love to do it. You're doing it as much for yourself as for them because you love to give them pleasure. You're doing it, to phrase it another way, to squeeze as much happiness out of them as possible because you love them, and making them happy is like a drug to you. If my wife had a button on her fucking center of her chest that just was the happiness button like rats get in those cocaine experiments, I'd probably flip that thing on, close the lid, and never turn it off. She'd probably die several days later from dehydration, but in pure ecstasy, I might add. They'll love it, and you love making them have really great times, so every now and again, go a little bit over the top and treat the living fuck out of them. What would you feel like if you came home Friday after a long week at work and your wife was dressed in some old bullshit and she's like, you, pants down, sit down, I'm draining your dumb ass. Oh my fucking God, but who the fuck says no to shit like that? You know, if you're a hardworking woman or whatever, you take care of the kids, whatever the fuck you do, and the husband's like, that's it. We got oil, we got candles, we got yoga music, it's massage time. Get your ass down on that fucking massage table or on that couch. I'm going to go to town on you. And you're like, why? And I'm like, there's no asking why. It's because I love you. And they're like, what do you want out of this? And it's like, oh, we really need to go to a psychotherapist. So if you do these things regularly, you know, whatever regularly means to you, once a month, once every 2 months if you're more of a private, not sexual person, once every other day if you're a psychotic sex addict like many of my friends seem to be, then as you do this, your relationship really, it elevates into sublimity because you're always cooperative. You squash out all your beef mostly in your own head. When you have beef with the other person, you talk it out like a human being. And then regularly, most of your activities that you do apart, you enjoy, or things you just have to get done. Almost everything you do together, you enjoy. And every now and again, you pepper in this crazy over-the-top bullshit where you really drain the fucking happiness out of them. Man, you're setting yourself up for a really fucking good time. I try to do most of the shit. I don't always succeed. With my wife, she's still around. She hasn't filed any papers yet. So if you catch her on the street, ask her what our sex life is like, and she can tell you all about how I'm really pathetic. Yep, that's true. All right. Weird flex on the channel, huh, Mike? Why are we talking about this weird shit? Who knows? Maybe we'll do it again next time, and that's when I'll see you.